Everyone, Jeff St Laurent, and I am here for the Tuesday call, and I've got a special guest on the call today, which I will introduce in a second. And today's topic, I like to call it the ultimate website guide, the do's and don'ts. So I'm particularly excited for this call because, a website is kind of like the hub of our business in some ways. And while, we can start off and it's not 100% necessary because you can use social media, so forth and so on, ultimately having a place where, that we can call our home, that wherever we're posting any of our content, et cetera, it's all goes back to this one place we just call a website, right? So hopefully we can take out a lot of the mystery behind it all, give you some clear-cut, do's and don'ts, whether you have one and you're looking to revamp it, or you're just starting off as a coach, as a lot of people are who are wanting one. Myself and Lynn, who I'm going to bring in a second, are going to really help you out with that. So excited. We got some more people calling in, which is great. Actually, see my brother called in too, which is good. Anyways, with that being said, let me just give you a few things. I do record these calls, if you want to check it out, my university, my website, sellingcoaching.com. And then if you head over to the university, I've got all the recorded calls. We're up to, it was like 48 now. So we're trucking along. There's some really great detailed content in there. I help coaches transition to a full-time business. So we get a lot of, I love to deliver a lot of valuable content in there for you to help you along. In addition to the recorded calls, we've got over 100 videos, 2 to 3 minute short videos that are, again, education in nature, really giving you tips and strategies to move you forward. So check that out in my university. Also on my website, sellingcoaching.com. If you go right to the top, you'll check out my private Facebook group. So if any of you are not in my private Facebook group, that's just a great community of coaches. It gives us an opportunity to interact on different levels that you can't if you're just in my email community. So if you want to check that out, head over to there, like I said, right at the top of my website, and consider joining and click join, and I'll let you into the group, and we'll go from there. Also, lastly, moving forward, if you are ready to, if you know you need some guidance in working yourself along towards that transition to full-time, I'm available for one-on-one mentoring, and I also have a great group mentoring program as well. So if that's of interest to you, no pressure at all, just head to my website. You can go to the Work With Me tab, scroll to the bottom. You can fill out the form, and let's just create a relaxed conversation and kind of see where it goes. With that being said, let's launch right into this content because we got some great stuff for you today. I want to introduce to you, everybody, a good friend, Lynn Coffey. Welcome, Lynn, to the call.
Hey, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, and Lynn and I met through a common mentor of ours, Ryan Lee, and we were down in Connecticut, about 2 months ago now, maybe?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and we were just at a great mastermind event, learning, growing, connecting with other great entrepreneurs. And I met Lynn, and just before I even knew what she did, just chatting with her, a bit between breaks and on lunch and stuff like that, I was just like really impressed with just her realness, her authenticness, and she's just an amazing person. And I think you'll make your own judgments as you listen to her throughout the call today. But I was just really impressed with who she was. And then I got even more excited because I started learning about her company, basically, designing websites, and she'll go into it a little bit more. But and just her philosophy behind it all, and where I became most excited was that as I help coaches transition to full time, obviously, and coaches on the call or listening to this recording, at some point, like I said, everyone wants a website or they want to revamp their website. And, with that being said, I've never had anyone that I felt like comfortable referring someone to, and I've worked with several designers over the years, even at the site sellingcoaching.com that I have now, as much as I absolutely love my site and love the way it functions and looks, et cetera. In terms of the design people and the people I hired, while they did a great job, there's several reasons why I don't feel comfortable recommending them. And so as I started talking with Lynn and learning more about our process, and then we met last week on the phone, and I said, hey, take me through what you do and tell me more about your philosophy. I was just super excited because if anything now, I feel like for my clients, or even if you're not a client, I feel like I have a resource and say, you can go to this woman and she'll take good care of you, and she won't kill you on price and she'll do all this good stuff. But I don't want you to think that this call is about, me, marketing and hyping up Lynn. If you're in that market, we'll definitely give you that resource. But more importantly is I want us to be able to understand, almost or take out the mysteries of websites and what's involved with that. So with that being said, Lynn, if I can bring you into this, why don't you briefly just tell them a little bit about kind of yourself, who you are as a person, and then obviously, the company that you have.
Yeah, I'd love to. So like Jeff said, my name is Lynn, and I actually started my business when I was 22, and I'm 35 now, so I've been doing this for a while. And I kind of fell into building websites, and I'll talk more about what makes me different, because I'm sure a bunch of other website designers. But it's been really neat because I've learned how to use technology to sort of take some of the load off of sort of trading dollars for hours, if you will. And so that's allowed me to do things that I care about in my personal life. And so one of those things is fostering. And so my wife and I, we currently foster. Right now we have two foster kids and one that we started fostering but have adopted. And the fun part of that is so I have 3 kids that are 3 years old and under. So it's one of the things I love doing, because I get to be this huge resource for my community and for these kids that just need a safe place for a while and maybe permanently. And I wouldn't be able to do that and sort of give back to my community, which totally fills who I am on a personal level, if I didn't figure out this technology piece. And I know right now that may sound like this huge stretch, but as we'll get into the call, that's what my goal is not just talking about geeky tech stuff, but how do we use a website to actually grow your business? And that's possible. It's just something that not a lot of people talk about. So that's my sort of quick intro. I've been doing online businesses and website building and helping people grow their business for a long time now. And the way that I do that is through using websites.
It's fantastic. And let's get into that, because, you say a good point right there of, using your website to help you grow your business. And that's obviously a big thing. My biggest pet peeve was, I go to the different media outlets and platforms where I'm interacting with coaches, and I get these coaches who they're so proud, and they send the link and say, hey, I got my website done, and I go to the website, and it might look great, but it's missing some key elements, that are vital for our website, like lead capture and things like that. So Lynn, why don't you start us off and start talking about, how we can start to use our website to grow our business, because it's not just an online brochure, it's much bigger than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here's the thing, right? When we're thinking about starting our business, it's like the honeymoon phase. We're thinking about all the stuff we're going to do, how we're going to help clients, how we're going to have our own schedule, we're going to be the boss of our lives, and very quickly what ends up happening is when you realize all the tech pieces that have to come together, as well as all the marketing and the client management and all that stuff, it can quickly become this dream crusher, if you will, because there's just so much you have to figure out and learn. And most people get into coaching because they really care about other people and they want to help. And what I found, again, through my own process, so I was in the health and fitness industry, and I needed to create a website basically to get my business online. Just like 99% of the people listening to this call, if you don't have a website currently, it's something that's probably on your to-do list. So I went out, got a website, was just like you said, Jeff, was super proud of it. I spent money on it, looked great. I didn't design it on my own because I didn't know how to do that. And then that's when all my struggles started happening. I was like, well, how do I drive, like no one's visiting my website unless it's like my mom or, my friend or,
Right.
someone that like knows me and is trying to support me. But nobody was visiting my website. And when I went to like networking events or, things to try to drum up interest in what I was doing, I'd hand out a business card and it would of course have my domain on there, but I never really knew, like, were people looking at my website? And if they were, like, why was nobody contacting me? Like, there just was this huge disconnect. And that's when I really started, because I'm sort of geeky in a way, so this really fit my personality, but I started trying to figure out, well, where's the bottleneck for me? And for me, it was like, well, I was out doing all these networking things and trying to drum up interest in what I was doing, but I couldn't figure out anything else. And so that's when I realized that it's probably the website that's the problem. And so I started doing a ton of research. And basically, a really long story made short, what I found out is a website is just like any other tool in your business, but there are ways to do it properly, and then there are ways that actually hurt your business. And what most of us do is we go out, we either build our own website or we hire a web designer. And as long as it looks pretty or looks nice, then, we sort of, clap our hands and, say, that's it, and look at this beautiful website that I have. And that's where most people stop, because they don't know that they don't know that a website can be used as an actual marketing asset. And so basically, the things that we need to take a look at are, what are other companies doing that when they drive traffic to the site, what are they doing on the website to basically get people to reach out and connect with them? And this is all, a larger part of the marketing or the sales process, which sometimes in coaching can be seen as like this, oh, I don't want to sell, it makes me feel sleazy, and it's, I just want to help people. And so the way that we use a website actually makes the selling process a very natural process, which is a huge relief to a lot of people that are in this industry, because like I already said, most of us just want to help other people, as opposed to feeling like a used car salesman trying to, get somebody to sign some sort of a contract. And so, and Jeff, feel free to jump in anytime, if you think of another question or you need me to clarify something.
Absolutely, yeah. No, you're going great.
Okay. So I started looking at what things should be on a website, like what things make a difference, like what actually matters, and then what doesn't. And here's what I found out, and it was a little difficult for me to swallow at first, but I was impressed with my logo at the time, and I was impressed with my website. Like, I thought it looked good, but it wasn't working. And so the biggest thing that I've noticed when I look at coaches' websites is it's usually based off of aesthetics. So in other words, if it looks nice, then we feel like the website has done its job. And what ends up happening is, the word you used earlier, your website really is nothing more than an online brochure. And furthermore, the home page tends to get really cluttered. Now, as the business owner, we don't view it as cluttered. We view it as like, look at all this amazing information I have to share with you. Here's some, information about me and my services and where I'm located and my social profiles and my Instagram account. And, we think all of this stuff is really pertinent to get across to our website visitor right away. And what I learned is, for the website visitor, and the technical term is called user experience, but for the website visitor who's coming to your website and just trying to check you out, like see what you're about, like what kind of coaching you do, how can you help them, most of the stuff on people's homepage, on like a coach's homepage, doesn't matter to that person at that time. So that's a pretty powerful sentence. Us as the business owners, we're like, here, look at all this great stuff. But for the person that's coming to check out your business, most of the stuff that we put on the homepage is not of importance to them at that time. And in fact, it gets overwhelming for them. And there's a saying that there's analysis paralysis. In other words, if you're not sure what to do next, or if it's kind of unclear, we end up doing nothing. We kind of get stuck. And that is where the bottleneck is for most websites that I review or end up redoing, is we're sending traffic to a place, in this case the website, that isn't optimized for your user. It's not optimized for the person that you're trying to bring on as a client. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, and when you say, there's two things I want to ask to clarify. When you say it's not optimized for your user, what are we looking for in terms of that, the objective with that? So, like, in other words, when it's optimized for our user, what do we want to see happen?
Perfect. So what we want to see happen is, I'll say two things. One, we need to immediately get across who you are, who you help, and how you help that person. So in other words, how you're going to get them results. The second thing that we need to immediately get across is we need to make some sort of a valuable offer to that person. And that valuable offer, which we can talk about more a little bit later if you want, that valuable offer does two things. Even getting across the first thing I mentioned, like who you are, who you help, how you help them, those two things, they reject the people that aren't a good fit for you, but they bring in even closer the people that are a good fit for you. And so oftentimes when we're first getting started in any type of business, we're so scared to send anybody away that we want to be really broad. We want to be really general. We want to be really sort of status quo. We can help everybody. You know, as long as you have any sort of problem, I can help you. And what that ends up doing is it waters down your message, it waters down your personality, it waters down your brand. You know, people use different words here. But we need to, so that's sort of hurdle number one to get over. We want to be really bold in who we are and who we help, because what it does is yes, it's going to send some people away, but they weren't going to sign up anyway. And it will bring in the people who fit your ideal clients. And that's really, really important for all of this other follow-up stuff that we're going to talk about. Does that help clear it up a bit?
So Lynn, when you're saying be bold about who we are and who we help, it's, in other words, it's being really clear and really precise.
Yeah, exactly.
And therefore they really understand that, wow, this is for me or it's for not. There's no gray area.
Yeah, absolutely. And this happens to me all the time. It might just be because this is, you know, what I do for a living, but I hate when I go to a website and it doesn't actually give me any information. Like, I'm trying to think of something outside of the coaching industry. Like sometimes financial advisor websites. Like I'm looking for a service. I want to pay somebody for this service. I'm like actively looking, but I get to the site and it uses words that I don't understand, and I'm fairly savvy in terms of the language that a financial advisor would use. But it's like I get to the site and they're talking in this really technical language that I don't understand as a website visitor, as a possible client. This is very important. They're using words that I don't really understand. But the other thing is it looks just like everybody else's website. I mean, the design might be different, but they use the same corporate, boring, stuffy, you know, they don't have an area of specialty or expertise. There's nothing there that hooks me. Yeah. And a lot of times people will say, oh, well, but that's a financial advisor. Like that's kind of this, you know, almost like a corporate thing. And I don't believe that. And so that's part of my philosophy is I would much rather go to, and again, I'm using something outside of the coaching industry because then it's easier to map on. But it would be so much better if I had a choice between that corporate stuffy, not really giving me a lot of specific information, that website, or a second website which has, you know, whoever that financial advisor is, a nice welcome video from them saying, you know, hi, my name is blank, and this is exactly who I help, and this is how I help you do it. That would be so great for me. Like, okay, I'm in the right place or I'm not in the right place. But the thing that really is going to separate me from all those other webmasters, and this is going to be the entire base of what I talk about, your website has to have a personality, and you are that personality. Now, some people are like, yeah, bring it on. Like, I'm ready. Like, what do you need me to do? Like, you know, they just have that natural ability that they want to create a video and put it on their homepage. Now, for other people, what I just said totally freaks them out. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean I have to be the brain? Like, you know, I'm too shy. I'm way too introverted. That's not my shtick. I don't do that. Either way, it's okay, and either way, it's fine. There's going to be people who are looking for somebody that's, you know, that talks a lot and gives feedback and all of that, and then there's going to be people who just want somebody that doesn't really talk a ton and really listens a lot more and is more low-key. So there's different personalities for everybody. But what's important is whatever your personality is, we have to get that across on the website. because people ultimately buy from people. That's the biggest misconception. So if you're selling a service, even if it's financial services or, something like life coaching, it doesn't matter what the service is. People first want to see, do they like you? That's a really, really big sales point. If they don't like you, it doesn't matter how pretty your website is. If they don't like you, or if they're unclear on what your service is or how you can help them, it doesn't matter. So being clear and connecting with people through who you are, and I can give specific examples of this, as we go on, is really critical to have on your website.
Yes.
And so, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, to summarize that piece, especially as coaches, like we are the brand as a coach, and people need to feel that. When people talk about their logos or their branding, to me a brand is a look, an image, a feel, and that comes from us, and like you say, our personality. So it's like what you're saying, to echo this or to summarize it, sounds like we really want to come across clear in terms of like our headline. I like to say who we help with what specifically, so they know really clearly and immediately that if it's for them or not. They need to get a feel for who we are, right, through images, through videos, etc. And the more clear we are, like you said, if we're not clear, it waters us down. And I'll put that in, if you will, in selling terms, is that it devalues us, because we become less valuable for the person because they don't really know how we can help them or with what. And the more they know that, or the clearer it is, like when I say I help coaches transition to full-time business, or the things that you do, immediately now what we do becomes a lot more value, and value in terms, relates to the price that they're willing to pay for something. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And so to sort of like tie it up in a nice little bow, and then let me give some specific things that people can actually do on their website. Yeah. So it's not just sort of theory. We'll get into very specific things. So sort of to tie it up, here's the entire process that I basically teach my clients. We get you a good-looking website. It has to be mobile responsive. I won't spend a ton of time on that, but the latest statistic I saw was 70% of all internet traffic is on a mobile device. And so 5 years ago, it was kind of like, oh, well, if your site's mobile responsive, that's a nice-to-have thing. But these days, it has to be mobile responsive. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
And basically, if I'm not a tech person, mobile responsive means?
Mobile responsive means that whether you're looking at a website on a big desktop monitor or your little cell phone screen, you won't have to scroll sideways in order to see the site. It will reconfigure itself so that it still looks appropriate no matter what your screen size is.
Cool. Yeah, just keep going. They're good.
Okay. So my whole method and process is get a website that's mobile responsive, have that personality, be clear on who you are, and I'll talk more specifically about that, like I said, in a moment. Get people to opt in for something of high value to them, something that's going to solve one of their problems. When they opt in, they're added to an email list that you have set up in some sort of a program. And then whatever your marketing for follow-up is at that point, make sure that you execute that. What I do, I email my list Tuesday through Friday. Now, some people, that's maybe too much in some industries. I know people that email every day of the week. And I'll give some specifics as to why I do that. But I basically follow up and give people an email Tuesday through Friday. And I make basically a soft offer at the end. It could be a free 15-minute strategy call with me. It could be a free website review. There's a number of things that I'll cycle through. And when people are ready to take that next step with me, they'll take me up on the offer. So there's no hard selling involved. This is where I said at the beginning of the call, it's a natural process. People get on my list. They stay on my list for reasons which we can talk about here in a moment. So they get on the list, they stay on the list, and through that they start to know who I am. They start to know what my philosophy about how websites and technology can work to grow your business. And when they are ready, because nothing happens until they're ready. When they're ready, they'll decide to take the next step. And so at that point, there's no sales really that go on for me. There's no sort of pitching what I do or anything, which I hate doing, by the way. So I don't have to do that anymore because this person is already pre-sold on what I do because they've been with me, whether it's for 3 days or 6 months. It doesn't matter. That buying process is different for everybody, but they already know who I am and what I do. And when they make that decision, they're ready to sign up, and there's no selling on my end. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
So in other words, what you're doing is you're creating a very clear message, but then, like we said, a very compelling offer that allows them to want to opt in, enter the name and email address, and now they become a part of. Now they're in your system or your marketing system. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this differently as I'm hearing this as well. I never necessarily thought of this, even though it's really what it is. But really, essentially, correct me if I'm wrong. What you're saying is your website. It seems like most people would think prior would be a website would be like that online brochure. It's going to look pretty. But like you said earlier, you did that, but it wasn't working, mm-hmm. right? And when you say it wasn't working, what did you mean by that?
It means nobody was really interested. Nobody was filling in the contact form. Nobody was giving me a call and saying, "Hey, I saw your website." There was just this bottleneck. So I would send people to the site and then never hear from them again. That's an easy way to put it.
Right. So in other words, whether you're driving traffic personally or through ads or through however you were doing it, it was bottlenecking because that paralysis, it wasn't clear enough. There was no call to action. They didn't know what to do because you weren't clear. So essentially what you're saying is, Lynn, is that, when it comes to our marketing system, which a lot of coaches, it becomes overwhelming. That's why I like to help them with that sales and marketing aspect of it. But it's like your website is really the front end or a front end of your marketing system. It's like the doorway, so to speak.
Yeah, and so I tell people that, so for a lot of people when they're just getting started, they try to find like the cheapest host and the cheapest this and the cheapest that. And I totally get that. I'm all about saving money where you can and spending money wisely. But a website really is one of the cheapest investments that you'll actually ever make in your business in terms of advertising, in terms of like a rent or anything like that. I say rent because for many coaches, your website is your storefront. It's what people are going to go and check out and make a determination of, yeah, this person has an interesting business, what do they have to offer, versus I don't know what's going on here, and they're going to X out because they weren't, nothing connected with them. And so the website itself, it has to be, we talk about for selling a house, there has to be curb appeal. If you have a brick and mortar business, you have to have an amazing storefront location where there's lots of traffic and people are walking by, and your window display has to attract people's attention enough to get them in the door. Not a lot of people think of it that way. The actual window display or the facade of a brick and mortar store, its entire job is nothing more than to get you to walk in the front door. And that's what a website is. It needs to portray who you are, who you help, and get people interested enough to stick around and check out what you do. That's what we're trying to do with the homepage of a website. And that's why when it's really long and it has a little about you and a little about your services and success stories and, maybe an opt-in and your Instagram profile and here's your Facebook page and here's a map to your location, and when you throw all of that onto your homepage, just imagine a window display where a store took every single product they offered and just threw it in the window. It would just be a crazy mess. But that's what most people do on their homepage, as opposed to being strategic about it, in which I can sort of transition and start talking about some specifics. Your homepage, the more simple it is, the better it's going to be for that website visitor. So, for example, on my homepage and most of my clients' homepage, we have a small logo in the top left corner of the site. Next to the logo, so the top right corner, we have a very simple navigation. The navigation should be as limited as possible. So you definitely want to have a button for your homepage. You want to have a button for I like to have a button that says free, and that takes people to whatever your offer is going to be or your opt-in. After free, I like to have a button that says happy clients or testimonials. And obviously on that page would be a list of your testimonials. After that, I like to have a button that says work with me or services, or basically letting people know what you offer. After that, I like to have a button that says about me, or I personally use the button or the words my story, and I'll talk specifically about that page in a moment. And then after that, I have a contact. So that's it. It's like maybe 5 or 6 buttons, and they're pretty general buttons. There's not like 15 drop downs. There's not. We're just keeping it simple to start people off. So logo top left, NASLAR top right, and then under that, and the only thing on my homepage is a very clear headline of who I help, basically what I offer. I have a welcome video that's about a minute long. And right next to my welcome video is a button that you can click for, I changed it out, but right now it's a free report. So you can click the button, get a free report on my homepage, and then under that it says as seen in. So I write for Huffington Post, I've been on WebMD, I've been in USA Today. Those things are big credibility boosters for me. So my entire homepage is a headline, a welcome video, a button for my opt-in, and then as seen in with some logos of places I've been featured. That's it. Now, the power in that, now believe me, I have over 100 testimonials. I want to put as many of those things as I can on my homepage, and I want to start talking about my experience, and I want to start talking about how I traveled the world, talking about, all of this geeky stuff and how to use a website. There's so much that I, as a business owner, want to get across to these people. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, for a website visitor coming to my website, that stuff isn't important to them at that time. And so we strip it down to just what's necessary in that window display to keep people, to make someone go, huh, like, yeah, like, I'm actually, I'm a coach. She could help me. I'm looking for a website help. This is what she does. Okay, cool. I'm in the right place. I'm not like looking at something that doesn't even apply to me. And so that's my entire homepage. The welcome video is basically, this goes back to the personality thing I mentioned earlier. I have been in business long enough, and where when a client signs up with me, the first question that I ask them is, what made you buy? What's that thing that made you take the next step, pull out your credit card, and decided that you're going to come on board with me? And I take what they say, and I have a document on my homepage, or I'm sorry, on my desktop. And the document's called Why People Buy. And you can open it up, and it has everybody's responses. And the overwhelming pattern is that people, when they watched a video that I created, they felt like I was a real human being that would actually care about their business. They connected with me on whatever level, some sort of an emotional level, which in my industry is very important, because you can get a website designed pretty much anywhere. You can do one yourself. You can have your 10-year-old create something that looks pretty good these days. But the difference is, and this is what most people have experienced, you will end up spending some sum of money. Usually it's quite a bit of money. You'll have something developed. And then any time that you have a question, how do I add this welcome video to my homepage? How do I add a picture to my blog post? How do I connect this to my Facebook page? What you'll find is you go back to the person or the company that built your website, and they'll do one of two things. One, they've completely disappeared. You just can't get a hold of them anymore. That's really, really common. Or two, if it's a company, they'll say, well, we don't really know. That's not our area of expertise. We just built the site. We don't know how to work the thing. Like, we just built it. Like, we don't know how to actually use it for your business. Or two, well, we charge $75 an hour. I'll send over an invoice. How many hour blocks do you want to buy of tech support? And what happens is when you start having a legitimate business where you're doing things like blogging, and you have a Facebook page, and maybe you're doing ads, and you're starting to learn about more advanced things like landing pages and putting a form on your website to grow your list, all the stuff that you talk about, Jeff. When you start to move down that line and actually market your business, which is what all of us need to be doing, you'll find that you're going to have that bottleneck at the website every time. And if you don't have that resource available, it's just going to lead to overwhelm, frustration, confusion, and it'll just prevent everything else. So does all of that, how am I doing so far? Does all of that make sense?
That's great. And Lynn, and that's the things you talk about, and you know, especially the likability of a person, like the welcome video, like for everyone, you know, Lynn's website, lynncoffey.com, so LYNNCOFFEY.com. You'll see exactly what she's talking about as an example. I'll be pasting some links with the recording and stuff like that as well, so you can check that out. But like you as a real person, like the reason I'm here with you, Lynn, as opposed to like the people who design my site or other people I've come across, which there's hundreds of them, right? Is because you're a real person, and I connected with you and your energy. And you know, obviously, people that are listening, it would shock me if you don't know what I'm talking about after listening to Lynn. You're just very personal. You're very real. And what I like is you're talking about this process. When we talk about the do's and don'ts of website design, I want you to listen to Lynn. Is what she's saying is these are some of the considerations you want to look into when you're considering someone to design your site. I'll be the first one to say, when you talk about prices and stuff like that, my website I did years ago before sellingcoaching.com, it was TrueYou now, it's not up anymore, but I spent $5,000 on that site. And it did not have any of this stuff that we're talking about here. It was a bottleneck. I got 0 leads from it. And selling coaching right now, it's great because I'm getting leads from it all the time on a daily basis, but even that site, it cost me $3,000, plus some other web stuff to get going. And I'm just throwing numbers out there because one of the reasons I couldn't recommend that was I didn't want coaches spending $3,000 on a website, right?
Yeah,
because
you don't have to. Yeah.
And not be effective. And that's part of the reason is if I want to have you, Lynn, go into a little bit about kind of your process, because as we wrap this up, before we open it up for some questions or whatever, I want them to hear your process of because this is why I'm recommending you as well, because you're a website strategist. Like you help people to figure out the right way to do the website, and then you can turn it around and do that with them very quickly.
Right. So let me give you just a quick, I know we'll have to wrap this up, but let me give you more usable advice. I talked about what my homepage looks like, and absolutely, here's a big tip. Go to the person who's trying, if someone's trying to get you to use their services, website services, go to their website. Does their website look like the service they're going to sell you? That's a really interesting thing to take a look at. So what I promote to my clients, I actually use myself. So that's a huge thing to sort of look for. But so in terms of what other people use on their site, I already mentioned what's on the home page. Look at my site, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. In terms of the free page, I already talked about that. Whatever your compelling offer is, I like to have a page dedicated to it, as opposed to just having it, as a button on your home page or a button on your sidebar. I like to actually have a page describing and selling really the free offer, even though it's free. The testimonials page, real fast, the more testimonials you have, the better. But we all get started somewhere. So if you only have 1 or 2, that's okay. We just get started, put them out there. And there's sort of a testimonial hierarchy. If you can get just text, somebody, wrote you a letter testimonial and you have to type it up. That's sort of the bottom in terms of effectiveness. It's a testimonial, use it, go for it, but just know it's sort of at the bottom. If you can take that text testimonial and add an image of the person, it has a little bit more legitimacy to it. And then sort of moving up the scale to the top, if you can get that person to do a video of where they're just, it doesn't have to be professional. In fact, it's better if it's not professional. Just take out your cell phone one day and have them record what their experience has been like with you, where they were before, where they are now. And if you can get video testimonials, they're the most powerful. Because again, in video, you can get across the personality, what somebody sounds like, voice inflections, all this important stuff. But another thing that people don't often realize is when somebody emails you and says, "You're amazing, this is great," whatever they're saying, you can actually, now don't let the tech stop you on this. If you have questions, just, Google it or let me know or let Jeff know. But you can take a screenshot of that email and you can blur out the things that you don't want people to see, so like that client's email address or if there's any personal information. But you can take a screenshot of a Facebook message or a post that somebody put on your wall about how great you are, or any sort of a testimonial. And that's a really easy, quick way to generate testimonials. So moving forward, that's a testimonial page. Your services page, Jeff, that's sort of your area of expertise. You want to be really clear in what you sell, so that's what you do, obviously. Your My Story page and your contact page are all that's left. So I'm going to jump to contact. I would put all the ways people can contact you. Phone number. I never put my email address on there. I want people to fill in a form. There's a couple reasons for that. If they fill in a form, they're added to my email list, which is very important. But if I put my email, there are things called spam bots, and they literally scour code of websites looking for email addresses. And when they find one, it gets added to a spam list and it gets sold. And that's one of the ways that you start to get a lot of spam in your inbox. So just sort of a quick tip there. It's if you can just put a form instead. And you can also, on your contact page, you can link to what your social profiles are as well. The only page left is My Story, and I think this is a very powerful page. If you, again, look at my site and read My Story, it's a really long page. But I basically take people on my journey, and I get really, not emotional, but I get really personal with it. So I start talking about how I grew up, because it's a really compelling part of my story. I talk about how I grew up and sort of the decisions I made along the way, and how I started my own business at 22 years old, and how I went from really low income, almost poverty level family to traveling the world with marketing firms and speaking on their stages at their conference about the stuff I'm sharing here with you guys today. So that jump was only made possible because I had a website that actually worked. And that journey is sort of what I try to get across to people. So as you're starting your coaching business, or even if it's already in effect, but you're trying to get more leads or get more sales, everything that I talk about in terms of that website, when you can put who you are in that site and give something personal or emotional that your target or your ideal client can connect with, so that they know who you are, that they say, you know what, I like this person. I'm going to open this email. Even if Lynn sends it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm going to open it every single time because I'm interested in what she has to say. At some point, they're going to say, you know what, I need this life coaching package. I need this, whatever type of coaching you do. This person's going to say, it's now my time. And I'm going to take advantage of this person's offer, a phone call, a strategy session, whatever you're promoting at that time. And that's the natural sales process that you can't have unless you have a website that works first. So they're all the pages on my website. They're what I fill those pages with. And so I hope that's some specific information that people can, sort of map onto their website.
Yeah, Lynn, that's great. And we obviously can only get so much out in about 40 minutes or so. But what I liked about it is really at the end of the day, it goes back to the things that I preach. That's another reason why I wanted you here, and I want to recommend you for people, is because most importantly is that your philosophy, like what I notice is a lot of web designers, they can design a website that looks pretty, right? You can do that too, but more importantly is you understand what a website needs to do and the functionality of it as a marketing tool. That's what I'm excited about here is as you talk about this, this is the front end, this is the door, this is the welcome, if you will, to your business. And it's really important that we understand these pieces as we bring our website in. So, Lynn, thank you for doing that. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
I'll tell you what, let's open up the call. Let's open it up in terms of allowing people to, ask questions, maybe give, some of their takeaways, things like that, and then we'll close it off. I will say this though, before we open it up, I will, for those that want to connect with Lynn, for questions or whether you want to move forward or whatever for your website, I will post a link with the call And then also just to give you her website right out, like again, lynncoffey.com, LYNNCOFFEY.com. So she's a great resource for you there. So you'll have that available.